Good morning, I'm Bud McCord, and I'm here in Brazil, South America, in the city of São José dos Campos, not too far from São Paulo. It's a brand new day here. We're in our winter months, and we are still passing through the challenge of a pandemic, but we're under the care of God, and things are moving in the right direction. It looks like we're praying that this will be past us soon. Well, we want to talk a little bit more about food for thought. Jesus said, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." And so we need to be fed by the thinking and the mind of the Father, which comes to us through the word, which is Jesus Christ. We need to be healthy and well, and we can do that by living by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And I've become convinced over the years, working with people, that we need to develop the ability to think with Jesus. We need to abide in Christ like a branch abides in a vine. And a part of that abiding is to learning to think with Jesus. And what we do every day, Monday to Friday, is we think with Jesus and we think together. We're trying to develop an international community of people who speak English. And I noticed yesterday that we had people from Israel, we had people in France, we had people in the United States, we had people in Brazil. So our community is growing, and I hope you'll stay with us and you'll think with Jesus. I'm going to function more or less like a guide. I'm going to just simply direct our attention together to the same place. And one of the ways that we do that is we have a devotional that I have written, which is a subject that we will be thinking about with Jesus. And it's a thought that has come to me over the years, over the last 25 years of working in this area of spiritual formation. And I hope it'll be helpful. So I'm going to read the devotion for today. And then we're going to discuss it in the light of the scriptures. And we're going to turn our mind to the mind of Christ. And you have the mind of Christ. And we're going to think together about this subject. And we're going to think one more time about the idea of seeing the Christian life as a direction in which we are going, or a path which we are following. There's a lot of different ways to think about the Christian life, but one of the ways to think about the Christian life is as a path. I really, really like this vision of the path because it's a lot different to think about the Christian life as a path. We can also think about the Christian life as a vineyard, and we'll talk more about that later on. But let me read today's devotional, and we'll get started thinking with Jesus. Choose your direction wisely. In spiritual circles, we want to debate individual actions. God wants to talk about direction that will determine actions. In the business world, great leaders see directional trends and adjust. Weaker leaders see daily results and panic. Adjusting to trends means the business will stay with its market. Adjusting daily results will mean losing touch altogether. In raising kids, great parents see directional trends. Weaker parents scream and yell at daily behaviors. Adjusting to each and every error a child makes will drive both child and parent crazy. Adjusting to the trends in a child's behavior is helping them to choose the right direction. Take a look at your direction. This is what God sees. You may make periodic changes in behavior, but the direction you have chosen will overcome the momentary stumble along the way. Evil people can do good things occasionally, but not as a trend. Good people can do bad things occasionally, but not as a trend. Direction overcomes momentary lapses every time. Choose your direction wisely. Is it taking you somewhere? Is that really where you want to go? So let's think together with Jesus about this question of trends and direction, and understanding our Christian experience as being a participation in walking together in a direction toward a goal, toward someone. Let me read from the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus says these words. Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Jesus says that the great majority of people will go into the world into directions that are abundant, and they will choose their way, but it will not lead to what Jesus calls life. But he says there's a narrow way, and few people find it because it is very narrow. It does kind of pressure us in from both sides while we keep looking toward the direction. And it is difficult, and he's being honest with us, but these people will actually find life. You know, when we start thinking about how one should develop a spirituality, a lot of times we look at each individual error that the person makes, or we focus on a list of sins that people commit. We can also be very, very hard on ourselves and really, really ruin our spiritual experience by not paying attention to direction, because we're always paying attention to our mistakes. We want to learn to get away from that view. We want to get to where we're thinking with Jesus correctly. In John chapter 14, there's an amazing story of what it looks like to think with Jesus. Oftentimes when people say, what do you mean about thinking with Jesus? It's the experience that the first disciples had, the ones who became the apostles in the early church. They had the opportunity not only to walk with Jesus, they had the opportunity to think with Jesus. Listen to this exchange between Jesus and Philip. Now, Jesus is almost ready to be crucified. He's just told Philip and the other disciples that he's getting ready to leave. Philip is in a state of emotional turmoil. He's disoriented. He's frightened. Kind of sounds like me and sounds like you, I suppose. And he's going to now have to think with Jesus. And sometimes thinking with Jesus is not an easy experience. Jesus says to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You can see there the path. This is Christianity being described by Jesus as following him and going with him. Jesus continues, and he's talking now to the group. He said, if you had known me, you would have known my Father, and from now on you know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is sufficient for us. Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and yet you have not known me, Philip? He who has seen me has seen the Father. So how can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words that I speak to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does the works. Believe me. And I am in the Father, and the Father is that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Or else believe me for the sake of the works themselves, or believe me because you've seen my direction. The works will be the proof of my direction. It's amazing when we think about this moment between Jesus and Philip, because Jesus said, you've seen the Father. And he says, whoa, haven't seen the Father. Show me the Father, Jesus, and I'll be done. I'll be satisfied. No, he wouldn't be satisfied. Because the best way and the only way that we can actually see the Father clearly is if we see Jesus in action. We see Jesus doing the works of God. And so he's correcting Philip's thinking. Now, Philip went on to be an incredible evangelist. Philip went on to play a very, very important role in the early church. There's nothing negative said about Philip. So this was a moment in Philip's life where he was thinking incorrectly, and now he's thinking correctly with Jesus. And this is what happens with us. If we will learn to think with Jesus, we will have established our direction. We will have established our direction. And that is not in question. Philip was not trying to stop following Jesus. He was trying to understand. He was trying to see it correctly. And sometimes when we think with Jesus, we we end up sometimes being deeply corrected because he cares about our direction. You know, it's really interesting when we think about the entire Bible, and the Bible has this panoramic view of human history. And there's some things we can pick up along the way as we look in the Bible about the panoramic view of how God helps us and how God supports us. Now, here's a question that we can ask Jesus when we're talking about direction. We're trying to think with Jesus about, what does he mean, a narrow way? What does he mean it's straight and it's crowding us on both sides and few people find it? We need to understand that, so we need to think with Jesus. Well, here's one way to think about this. We live in the world, and all of us, all human beings, we're perceiving the world that's around us. And some people believe that everything around us is just accidental. It just happened to blow up and reform and be what it is today. But for us, as followers of Jesus, and certainly if you read any of the words of Jesus, he did not have a concept that what we see is accidental. But there is a way of looking at what's around us, and we can ask this question: is there a way of life? Is there a way of life that the creator of the universe will support? Is there a way of life that the creator of the universe will support? This is a question I'd like for you to put before Jesus and think with Jesus about. Is there a way of life that God is free to support? Now, if you go back into the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis chapter 1, you'll hear these words said when God decides to create humanity. In the verse says, let us make man in our image. The idea of image means let us make a visible representation of our character. Let us make a visible, active, living being who can love continuously, because God is love. And, you know, love is invisible until it has skin on, so to speak. Now, there are these words in Genesis chapter 1. It says about God and Adam and Eve, humanity. He said, and God blessed them. The word blessed or blessing appears in the Old Testament 640 times. The whole Old Testament is not understood correctly until you understand that there is a kind of human behavior that God can support. Now, as soon as he blesses Adam and Eve, he puts them they're in the garden, and there is a prohibition. It says you cannot eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because the minute that you get into the business of judging right and wrong, not only your own right and wrong, but the right and wrong of everybody else, as soon as you get into the business of you being the judge of everybody around you, and even being the judge of yourself, God is simply saying, I can't support that. I won't support that. You are here to love, not to judge. We get to Genesis 4, and we've got Cain, who has chosen a direction, and his direction is judgment. And he kills his brother Abel. If you move through the entire Bible, you get up to the Psalms, and you hear David saying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me by the still waters. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for God is with me. And then he says, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's a path. It's a path. It's a path that God can support. So what is the narrow path? What is the narrow path? This is what we need to think with Jesus. What is the narrow path? Well, we talked about this yesterday, but the narrow path is literally, what is Jesus? Is Jesus. We're not really walking a theology. We're walking with what God can support. And what is it we see in Jesus that God will support? Pure, continuous love. This is the path that few people find. Because in order for us to walk on this path, we have to believe that God is, and God is a rewarder of those who seek him. We have to believe that in this universe in which we live, there is a kind of life, a kind of behavior that God will give support to. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus begins by saying the word blessed. He says blessed 9 times to open the sermon. Blessed, supported, helped, guided, given the strength to make the adventure of love work, supported, guided. So when he says in chapter 7 that there is a narrow path, he's not talking about a path where we judge everybody or we're even hard on ourselves all the time. There's something we need to understand about people. Bad people, in God's estimation of what bad people are, or evil people, can occasionally do very good things. But they can't do it as a trend. They can do it as an action, but it is not the direction of their life. Now, a disciple of Jesus is supposed to be living directionally and walking along the path. As I walk along the path, I will occasionally do things wrong. I will sin. What does it mean to sin? Sin means to stop the flow of love. Even a thought in my mind that is not along the path that God can support stops while I'm thinking that thought, the flow of my love. It's impossible to love and sin at the same time. But I don't need to beat myself up over the fact that occasionally I do stop loving. What I need to do is pay attention to the trend of my life and the direction of my life. I need to pay attention to the direction of my life. Where am I headed? I am headed back to the Father through Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and life, and I will come to the Father only by Jesus. I will only come to the Father if I am on the path of authentic, genuine, continuous love. I am not perfect, but I am following the path of perfection. I'm following the path that leads back to God. It's a metaphor of how we can understand the Christian life. Now, here's what I'd encourage you to do about thinking about this. I would like for you to please not be too hard on you. If you sin or you stop love or you've done something wrong, get it confessed before God and get back on the path. But here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to recommit in your heart and mind that Jesus is the path that you do want to walk. That's what happened with Philip. Philip was confused. I don't think he really wanted to get off the path, but he needed to talk to Jesus. Even if it means a tough conversation between you and Jesus in the mind of Jesus, go into the presence of God and say, I want to walk the path of your justice and your love. I want to go with Jesus. Support me. Help me. Bless me. Bless me. We cannot walk this path without the grace of God coming to us. Hey, this is what we're thinking about today. Have a great day. Think with Jesus. I'm going to be thinking about this all day today, and I pray that our community of people who are seeking to think with Jesus will all be thinking with Jesus together in France and Israel and the United States, in Africa, wherever we may be. We can think with Jesus and we can stay on the path. Choose your direction. Make the choice, Jesus. God bless you.